Gainesville is a great place to come and take over.
I like that.
Failure's not an option. And the way around, we stand and pounding. Stop that hating clown. We'll come to your time straight, tear down. You ain't need much compare. Got your flag, got flags everywhere. We the Seminoles, we the Seminoles, we the Seminoles, we the Seminoles. You can see us lined up on Lake Bradford. We the Seminoles, we the Seminoles. Pick up trucks, pulled in, park back. We the Seminoles, we the Seminoles. Or maybe you see 15 RV. We the Seminoles, we the Seminoles. Cracking up like we on TV. We the Seminoles, we the Seminoles. Failure's not an option. Ain't no way around, we stand and pounding. Stop that hating clown. We'll come to your time straight, tear down. You ain't need much compare. Got your flag, got flags everywhere. We the Seminoles, we the Seminoles, we the Seminoles, we the Seminoles.
Welcome to Sod Talk. My name is Doug Manheimer. 27 years ago, Dean Coyle Moore called me here and asked if I'd help carry on the Sod Cemetery tradition. And we think we've done a pretty good job of it. We want to thank some folks in athletics that helped make this happen. Stan Wilcox, Monk Bonasort, Bernie Waxman, Rob Wilson. We want to thank, there's some extra point ladies here. You guys yell right back there. They're our Sod Cemetery gardeners, and they're out here every week that help make the sod looking great. My wife, Cricket Manheimer, is our sod florist, and you'll see flowers pregame in all 7 of our home games. So what is the cemetery? Some of you know, but 1962 we went on the road. Dean Coyle Moore was a mentor to the team, a dean, and he said, "Team, I think if you go up to University of Georgia, nobody thinks you got a chance, but I think you can win. It's on the road and against the crowd." The team went to University of Georgia, and those new Seminoles beat Georgia. They beat them 18-0, unexpectedly. So Gene McDowell and Red Dawson remembered that. They brought back some sod. They gave it to Dean Moore, and after 2 weeks, his wife said, "Coyle, you got to do something with that grass." So Dean Moore thought about it, and he said, "Let's bury it, and let's memorialize a plaque to remember when Florida State went on the road against the odds, against the crowd, and they won." And so Florida State made the marker, 18-0 over Georgia in 1962, and 98 wins later, the Sod Cemetery has become one of the biggest traditions in college football. It's been called a top 100 tradition. So we're very glad to have you here. For Sod Talk, we thought, well, let's bring the thing alive. There are a lot of people who come every week, and so let's bring it alive, and let's bring back some former athletes who brought back the sod, and we bring them back to Doak for you. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. We've got returning Hall of Famers today, and in 2 weeks, it's Clemson. And we had a good little win over there in 1988. It was, let's see where that one is, right here, 24-21. You may remember Deion Sanders on a great punt return. But at the end of the game, the greatest play since My Fair Lady was the punt Rooski. And so coming from Milwaukee in 2 weeks is Leroy Butler. And Leroy, who also invented the Lambeau Leap with the Packers, is going to be here, and we'll talk about Clemson. But today, we've got returning Hall of Famers. 2 fellows who last night were inducted in the Hall of Fame. Are very special Seminoles, and I want to introduce them to you. 37 years later, this fellow still has the record for making the most tackles in Florida State football history. He made 512 tackles. Would you welcome, from Gainesville, Florida, Aaron Carter. Aaron, come on out.
Well, I'm walking slow because I'm looking back. I span 3 staff in terms of generation, and I'm looking at this 1974 FSU over Miami win.
That was a good one, and y'all weren't supposed to do that, were you?
That was a great one. That was a win that came at the end of a losing season, but we never quit.
That's the Seminole win, bringing back the sod. Aaron, come on up here, come on right up here, Aaron. Our other guest has come to us from Phoenix, Arizona. He scored 38 touchdowns in his career for Florida State. maybe the most elusive runner we had ever had to that point. He was a 9-year NFL player, was the most valuable player of the St. Louis Cardinals. From Chip Lee, Florida, would you welcome back Amp Lee? Aaron and Amp, it is great to have you as our first Sod Talk guests. First, Aaron, I remember when you graduated, you used to protect the goal line, and soon enough, Aaron was protecting campus as a Florida State policeman, but now you're in education. Tell folks what you're doing these days.
I am currently a teacher on special assignment working with exceptional education students in Gainesville, Florida.
AMP is helping a lot of young people who need help, and Aaron is, and we appreciate that. Aaron, take us back to 1977 a minute. Let's go right over here a second.
77 was a good year.
77 a year. You had some teammates, Monk Bonasorte, Jimmy Jordan, Wally Woodham, Larry Key. It had been 9 years since we had defeated University of Florida. We're going back to your hometown, December 2nd, 1977. Tell us what it was like to go to Florida Field.
Well, if you imagine, we're in Coach Bowden's second year. We're still hungry. We felt that his first year, we should have probably lost one game, but that's being the players. But in 77, we rode into Gainesville, a successful season, feeling like we were on top of the world and couldn't be stopped. Going into that hostile environment, we had to look hard to find our fans in the end zone, but we found them. We found them. The team went in the end zone. We had a little cheering session, and we took care of business.
37-9, one of the great Seminole victories in Gainesville. Now, Aaron, last night you were inducted in the Hall of Fame for Florida State. Tell us what that means to you.
This whole weekend has been a wow weekend. I'm impressed with everything I see. I'm impressed with all the people that I haven't seen in years, all the people who were important in my life as a development from a student and a football player. And it's wow. That's all I can say.
I think we all say wow, and we're glad to have you back here, Aaron. Let me ask you this. Now, Aaron, I'm not sure if you still be a linebacker, maybe at middle guard right now, but I'm going to give you a scenario. You're out at Doak. Can you still give us one? You could give us one play, couldn't you?
I can do one play.
All right, now let's say this. Let's say Carlos Williams at 6'1", 228 with about 4.4 speed, and he's headed right to you. What could happen, Aaron?
I got some lessons from Amp, but the first thing he'll need to understand is that I've developed a very special skill set. And if he comes alone, he might get knocked out.
Oh, my goodness.
If he brings some friends, some of his linemen, he'll be okay, but
you might still make a tackle?
He won't score.
I'll tell you what, we've played football now for, I guess, 66 years. No Seminole has ever made more tackles than Aaron Carter. Aaron, we're glad to have you back.
Thank you. Thanks for being, it's great to be home.
Thank you.
Well, Amp Lee from Chipley. Amp, tell us what you've been doing lately.
Okay, lately I've been I coach and teach at Phoenix Country Day, a school in Arizona. I also have my own basketball club. I coach football, basketball. Long story short, I'm working with kids, something I love to do.
Well, Amp, that is tremendous. And Amp's got two boys. I believe they're here right now. He's got a little one and one about 14.
15 and 3. They're actually trying to track down some things in the gift shop.
The gift shop, they got to buy Seminole stuff. So, Amp, I want to ask you this. Let's wander over here. I went to this game at Ann Arbor, Michigan. Some of you may remember. 1991, Florida State ranked number 1. We took on Big Michigan, ranked number 3. It was called the Game of the Century. Everybody in America is watching it. 103,000 people came to the Big House. And those fellas, they thought that little old Seminoles from the South wouldn't have much chance. Well, we had something else. But let's take us before that game. You guys are getting ready. What was it like to get ready to play in the Big House?
Well, obviously going into that game, it was a big game. We were number one ranked team. They were number 3. They talked about the Big Ten football versus style of our play with the speed and so forth. You know, obviously the Desmond Hyman and Terrell Buckley matchup was a big issue, so forth. But just to tell you guys a little bit about the game, before the game in the locker room, you know, guys get prepared a lot of different ways. And Sean Jackson at the time, who was my backup running back, you know, this guy was banging his head on the locker. He was shaking the lockers back and forth. And I don't mean just, you know, and he didn't have a helmet on, by the way. Yeah, so I'm, you know, the running backs were sitting together, so I'm sitting next to Sean, and I kind of look over and I go, like, I'm thinking, like, dude, I mean, I'm starting today, man. You know, so I was thinking, okay, if you're feeling that way, Sean, perhaps you should go out and carry the ball today. So, long as it was something we always laugh about and talk about, but at the same time, I went out and had a great game, so it was a great win. And Sean was okay, so he ended up being okay.
Well, Sean was good, but I'm glad we started you that day, Amp. And
Thank you.
there are a couple of plays. If any of you guys YouTube sometime Michigan, FSU, 1991. It's one of the most stunning games you've ever seen. There's one 5-yard run that may be what I think one of the greatest 5-yard runs in Florida State history. And I thought today we'd venture back. Keith Jackson and Bob Greasy with ABC television for that call. And you had just caught a 38-yard pass from Casey to get us to the 5-yard line, and we had to take it on in, so it's 1st and goal from the 5, and it sounded like this.
Holden is now 10 of 16 for 160 yards. Go back to what I said in the opening, Keith. This backfield is the best backfield in the country. 1st and goal from the 5 for the Noles. This is Lee. Look at those feet. Touchdown. He walked in. He jumped around that quarterback like the defensive man wasn't even there. He does it so easily. It's deceptively easy. When you see the replay, watch the man's feet. Watch his feet. Watch you make the defensive man miss. It's a little toss. 7 comes in. That's Terrell. Now watch Dotton, 22. Makes a little move to the outside. Good blocking inside. They make it look easy. Yep. Dotton's a senior, one of the better ones around this neck of the woods.
You know, y'all remember that? I think that Keith Jackson likes your feet, Amp.
I'd say so. It was a great play.
There was a cornerback named Lance Dotton, and certain parts of Lance's uniform were left on that field when Amp went by him. But we went on and won 51-31, and really one of the great victories in Florida State history. Amp, 9 years in the NFL. What was that like after leaving Florida State?
It was different in that it's way more competitive by way of guys playing for different reasons, different motivation. There's a lot of pressure there. At the same time, it was a tremendous opportunity, a tremendous blessing. I was very grateful for it. But you know, to go back to just hearing that Keith there, I get emotional because I can remember being there and the energy and just, you know, everything I thought before as I was approaching the guy.
Failure's not an option. Ain't no way around, we steady pounding. Stop that hating clown. We'll come to your town straight tear down. You can't need much compare. Got your flag, got flags everywhere. We the Seminoles, we the Seminoles.
We thought it would be a good idea to do Sod Talk, and that's a time for you to meet some of the greatest folks who brought back the sod to Florida State. So we've asked the rain to run away. It's done it. We're ready. Are you guys ready for a big ball game tonight? You're needed tonight. You know that, right? So it's going to be our part. We want to thank some folks from athletics, Stan Wilcox, Monk Bonashort, Rob Wilson, and Bernie Waxman really help us a lot. Jim Hunt does our social media. Randy Allen does audio.
We got another chance in the Sugar Bowl to go after those guys, and like we always do, we put it on the Gators and we send them home crying.
And you also took on the Ghost of Notre Dame, Is that right? In the Orange Bowl.
We did.
The next year, who were our stars on that one besides you?
We had, I think, Andre Cooper was there. Again, we had Ward Doug in the backfield, E.G. Green. And so Wadsworth, we had a lot of great players out there. And so Notre Dame, they had a great team as well. They took a lead on us, but Cooper, he just caught a bunch of long balls and we were able to bring back into the Orange Bowl.
Y'all remember Andre Cooper. So if Cooper caught a pass, we all went, coo. Y'all remember that little coo? Now, Peter, you left here, and somehow somebody in professional football thought that maybe you ought to give that a shot. Tell us a little bit about Baltimore Ravens and on to become a Super Bowl champion. A little bit about your Baltimore times there. What do you remember there?
Yeah, I had some great times with Baltimore. I was able to hook up with some good players. With some of my friends in South Florida, the Miami Hurricanes, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Vinny Testaverde. I was able to play with all those guys, and I was able, since we had beaten Miami so much, I had the upper hand in the locker room. So that was fun. Also, I got a chance to play with Eric Brett from Florida. And again, got to talk trash to him as well. But we had some great times in Baltimore. We started off, we were a team that moved from Cleveland to Baltimore. We were really trying to establish an identity. And we established that identity with defense. Obviously, Ray Lewis being the greatest linebacker of all time. And then adding other pieces, we were able to put together a world championship team in 2000. But I tell you what, it was a special thing. I really enjoyed my time with the Baltimore Ravens.
To become a world champion is the ultimate in the NFL, and we want to thank you for everything you've done. Just a minute, what's it meant to you to become a Seminole?
I tell you what, it's really been everything, and I'm so appreciative to this university, Bobby Bowden, as I said before, giving me an opportunity to come down here and play football. They took a chance on me. I look about like this coming in as a defensive end, about 210 pounds, and they took a risk signing a smaller guy like myself, and I was able to come and make some plays and get a degree, met my wife, and now I live here in Tallahassee. So Florida State and Tallahassee, it's been great for me, and I'm just so thankful for the opportunity that I've had, and I'm so glad to be a Seminole.
It's just you, Leroy. All right, Leroy. Let's go back to high school. Robert E. Lee High School. Now, Leroy was voted to the All-Century team for Florida high school players. He wasn't bad, I think. Now, you had a home visit from Bobby Bowden, and that one's kind of become urban legend. Tell us a little about where you were in that home visit from Bobby Bowden.
Well, I think one of the few things that back then, I got a lot of letters from colleges, but when the coaches from the other universities saw my zip code and address, they said, we're not going to make a home visit, we'll just make some phone calls. And Coach Bowden said, no, we'll make a home visit. So, I told Coach Bowden he met me at the local gas station, and he followed me in, and once he drove his car down, I was on my bike. I looked back and I didn't see the car. So it was about 7 guys rushed over to the car, was shaking it. Coach Bowden said, no, I'm going to recruit Leroy Butler. So Coach Bowden comes down, and this is a true story. When Coach Bowden comes into the projects, right, he's the first guy to ever sit on our couch without the plastic. You had to sit on that plastic. You got to sit on that plastic. If you don't sit on that plastic, your mom will go after you. So she let Coach Bowden sit there. She gave him a cup of water. I don't think we had at the time. But they grew up like you, but I'll never forget what he told my mom. He told my mom, I want to give him a chance to become a young man. Because that particular year was 6 guys that was Proposition 48, which meant you couldn't play your freshman year. But he wanted to give me a scholarship and give me a chance to succeed and carry on my family, and I'm deeply indebted for that.
Tell you what, Bobby Bowden did pretty good, didn't he? And Leroy and I just met really yesterday. We talked by telephone. He texts a lot. Leroy, what you going to be doing this spring? Tell these folks.
Well, one of the things I talked about, I promised to my mom and family I'm going to finish my degree. And they gave me 4 choices. The NFL, they'll pay for your school. And one of them was obviously Florida State. And seeing that the ratio is like 3 to 1 women to guys, I think I'll come to Florida State.
So Leroy Butler is going to be with us in spring getting his degree from Florida State.
I do aspire to people like Peter. That's my inspiration.
You going to get in shape like Peter?
And I wish I did.
I don't know what to do. You got to follow the Pete diet.
He's always been a good-looking guy. That's just what they write in the bathrooms in the locker room. He was a nice guy.
All right, now Leroy, let me ask you this. Talk about, you played, one year you played at cornerback, and you pretty much held down the corner. Now we were weak over at that other corner as a guy number 2 over there. Who was that other corner?
Yeah, Deion Sanders.
Oh yeah, that was another one.
The only guy that had gold necklaces on the team, but that's a different show.
But did they pretty much, you got, let's see, they pretty much kept, he got interceptions because nobody would throw against you. Is that right? That's why he got balls?
Make sure you read what I wrote on there.
That's right.
I have Deion Sanders be a good pick in Atlanta.
There you go. Because nobody would throw against you, right?
That's right. I got one of my teammates, Bill Reagan. He's one of my best friends on the team. What's Bill?
Bill's right. Bill don't come out in a minute.
Bill will tell you, we helped shape Martin Mayhew, Deion Sanders, and Stan Shire. They learned that from me and Bill.
That's it. Darn right. All the way from Jacksonville. Now, Leroy, let's talk a little bit about some bowl games, and then there's another one we want to talk about Clemson right there. Which of these bowl games, we got to go back in ancient times.
Yeah, come on back down here on the
Come
team.
on, back down
We
here.
didn't win no Super Bowls and no championships.
All right, now how about,
Oh, the Sugar Bowl.
all right, wait a minute now.
That one gets me a little excited.
This is Auburn.
Yeah, that gets me excited.
We won 13-7. The Democrat called that game prime time, in time. I remember Lawyer Tillman. You remember Lawyer Tillman? He was a great attorney that played wide receiver for Auburn, right?
Yes, we weren't supposed to win that game. It was supposed to be a bigger, physical SEC type team. And I just remember going into that game, we got no respect on the defense. Although having Deion Sanders, one of the best players in the nation, we did not have a lot of respect. But after that particular game, if you remember that game, even if you go Google it, the last play, Deion intercepted the pass to seal the game. And I just remember Deion going to that sideline saying, prime time, baby. I was like, thank God for prime time. I'll never forget that, though. The Sugar Bowl back then was one of the top bowls.
Absolutely, and that was also the game Odell Higgins cut a square, about 2 feet square of the sod to bring back, cost us $800, and we gladly paid the bill. Sugar Bowl was not happy, but we were very happy. Now, Leroy, we're going to talk about a game against Clemson in a minute, but let's talk a little bit about the Green Bay Packers. Now, look.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, now look, 38 interceptions, that's pretty good.
I dropped about 12, but don't bring that up.
All right, now. 20 and a half sacks. That's because you surprised them, right?
Yeah, you know what? Back then in the early 90s, defensive backs were not going after the quarterback. And we had this, for some reason, remember now I was a cornerback, and I got this phone call to say, you're going to move to safety. We got a great idea. We're going to draft Terrell Buckley. I said, you're going to do what? Wait, let me get this straight. You want me to move so Terrell can be the corner in Green Bay? I must have dropped that. Terrell was one of my favorites.
All right, but now let's talk about one touchdown in particular.
Yes.
You hit somebody, they fumbled, and then what happened?
Well, the guy fumbled the ball. Reggie White picks it up, and when he picks it up, he's moving this slow. So some guy grabs Reggie and throws him down. As he was falling, he allowed me the ball. And I'm running down the sideline, and I'm about to score my first touchdown. And I saw this guy leaning over, just kind of standing there, but he had a beer in his hand. So as I was running, I pointed to the guy like, I'm going to jump right there. So he had to make a decision. Does he throw his beer away and catch me, or did he let me hit myself on this frozen wall? So when I got close, I jumped up there. You can see him trying to make a decision. What does he do? He's like, so he throws the beer away. He catches me. He says, you owe me a beer. The Lambeau League was born, and now everybody knows.
Failure's not an option. Ain't no way around, we steady pounding. Stop that hating clown. We'll come to your town straight head down. You ain't need much compare. Got your flag, got flags everywhere. We the Seminoles, Seminoles, we the Seminoles, we the Seminoles.
Are you all ready for some Seminole football? Good afternoon. My name is Doug Manheimer. I'm the keeper of the Sod Cemetery. The Sod Cemetery, though, it's pretty simple. It's because we've had some legendary players that have made this work. We've got a legendary quarterback with us. You may know that in the 1960s, people didn't throw that much, but Florida State under Bill Peterson decided, well, we'll throw. We'll do, maybe we don't have all the talented players that others do, but we're going to pitch and catch it, and we're going to do it better than anybody else. One of the real legends of that passing era, when Florida State brought that game to the college game, is Bill Kappelman, who's our guest. Bill was the Florida State's all-time leading quarterback. He set every passing record we ever had. He passed for 508 yards in one ball game, a record which held until Chris Winkie broke it 31 years later. He set our career, single season, single game passing records, threw for 42 touchdowns from Dunedin, Florida, and now Lynn Haven. Would you welcome Bill Kappelman? Well, Bill, you didn't know you'd end up in a cemetery. You knew you'd end up in a cemetery. This is alive when it least, right?
We're quite ready for it, but
Well,
this occasion I'm happy to be here.
we won't lay you out. Bill, 1965 or 64 may have been your senior year in high school. Tell us what brought you to Florida State.
Well, when I was being recruited by Florida State, a couple of guys by the name of Tenzie and Lloyd McCobb were playing. I stood on the sidelines and watched that pro-style offense. Tenzie throwing to Lloyd McCobb, and thought that was probably the place I needed to be. We were actually very lucky at Florida State with Bill Peterson, who was the coach at that time. He had gone to San Diego, where Sid Gilman was offensive coordinator and coach, and learned the pro-style offense, putting 5 receivers into the pattern. And during my whole time at Florida State, we were ahead of the defense. The defense never caught up, and it allowed us to throw a lot, complete a lot, create a lot of points. Obviously, I had some pretty good receivers, particularly a guy by the name of Sellers. He held some national records for 20 plus years. Rashad Green has got a chance to break several of his records. Numbers of receptions, yardage, touchdowns. But keep in mind, Sellers didn't play his freshman year. He only had 3 years to do that.
If Ron was here, he would remind you that he did it in 3 years,
Yep.
and these guys do it in 4. Pretty competitive guy, huh?
Definitely. Not a very good practice player. But he, come game time, throw it to me, throw it to me, throw it to me.
When Ron left, much because of you guys pitching and catching, I know Ron had the record. He caught more passes for more yards than anyone who had ever played college football. And 2 of his 3 seasons were from the fella from Dunedin, Bill Kappelman. Bill, let's take a look at Sod for you, because you did a pretty good job here. Let's look at some of them. Let's do 1968. I know this one, it says FSU Houston. It was in Jacksonville in the Gator Bowl Stadium, not in the bowl itself. And I recall Houston at that time was a tremendous power, a very fast team from the Southwest Conference. And what do you remember about drilling Houston?
Well, Houston had won their 2 previous games, scoring over 100 points.
Did you guys hear that? That's true. Houston scored more than, they beat Tulsa 100-6, I think.
Something ridiculous. So what Coach Pete did was, we had a good game plan, but before the game we went out and warmed up, and when we came back in the locker room, getting ready to go on the field, he made us all take off our jerseys and put on our previous game jerseys that had not been washed. So, it's true.
Now, was that so it smelled worse, or what do you think the real reason?
We did. I'm not sure if that was the idea, but he keep the defenders away. That's a good
I
idea.
got it. Well, it obviously worked. Let's look here. NC State. Remember, folks, we defeated NC State here in '68, 48-7. They were favored in the ball game. What do you remember about going to Raleigh for that one?
It was a great game. They had several outstanding defensive players that went on to have real good National Football League careers. We just got on in front and things started to roll. It was a cakewalk after that. It wasn't much of a game after we got rolling early.
I would say you deflated them.
Yes.
Now, South Carolina, you went to Columbia, and that was probably at the fairgrounds there where Steve Spurrier walks today. And again, South Carolina was favored. We beat them 35-28. Remember that ball game?
I do. It was kind of like who's got the ball last was going to win. I believe Sellers caught, 15 or 14 for at least probably 4 scores. It was a cold, crisp night, perfect for football. And obviously, with that kind of score, the defense didn't stay on the field long. And we were fortunate to outscore them and win that ball game.
Now, Bill, your senior year, and Bill was pointing out, in '68, you had Ron Sellers, really one of the greatest receivers ever to play, much because this guy got the ball to him. But Bill, Ron had not been redshirted. Bill was redshirted his first year. So Ron Sellers went off to the pros, and in '69 you had a bunch of young receivers. But you went down to Miami, always tough, a lot of talent down there. We pulled that one off. What do you remember about that?
Well, before I get to that game, I'll tell you a little bit of another little story about Sellers. He, as I said, always wanted the ball, throw it to me, throw it to me. He said, Cap, you throw me a lot of passes, we make a lot of yards. I'm going to be a first-round draft choice, and I'll take care of you. I'm still waiting on that. Yeah. But this game in Miami, most memorable thing I remember about that game was waking up feeling like I'd been beat up the night before. Miami had a good football team, particularly a good defensive team. We were fortunate. I was talking to somebody here earlier today about that Miami game and a backup tight end by the name of Ted Zafford caught a fourth down pass to give us a first down. And it took plays like that. We went for several fourth downs and were fortunate enough to make them. It was a big game and a tough game for me. I remember, like I say, waking up with a lot of aches and pains.
So a few Miami players tapped you on the shoulders in that game, huh?
That's for sure.
They were a tough group.
Failure's not an option. Ain't no way around, we steady pounding. Stop that hating clown. We'll come to your town straight head down. You ain't need much compare. Got your flag, got flags everywhere. We the Seminoles. We the Seminoles. We the Seminoles.
Do you think you'll be back a little more these days?
I hope so.
We'd love to have you.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I can't believe you're here. I'm just beside myself.
But let's go ahead and meet the legends that are with us today. This first fellow came from Pensacola, Florida. He was the USA Today National Defensive Player of the Year, a 2-time consensus All-America linebacker. He led our 1993 National Championship defense. His number 10, like Bo Derek, is a retired jersey at Florida State. He was nearly perfect. As a Tampa Bay Buck, he was a 9-time All-Pro, a Super Bowl champion. His number 55 was retired by the Bucks. He was the NFL's Man of the Year for his good works. And this summer, he was inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Welcome back, number 10, Derek Brooks. football legend was our first legend at Florida State. He is our first retired Jersey athlete. He led us to our first win right there over the University of Florida in 1964. He was a consensus All-America, a 13-year Oakland Raider, a 6-time All-Pro, a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl Most Valuable Player. He's a member of both the College Football and the Pro Football Halls of Fame. And when America honors the best wide receiver in America, they win the Biletnikoff Award. Welcome, number 25. Thank you for coming. Derek, let's talk about times at Florida State. Let me ask you this. Honestly, you could have gone anywhere you wanted to out of high school. What led you to Tallahassee?
Actually, I really don't have a sexy story to tell you. But I'll tell you this. My mother was sold on Florida State during my visit with Coach Bowden in our house. My younger sister, LaToya, was probably 7, 8 years old at the time. And she was sitting between Coach Bowden and myself as they were talking, and Coach Andrews. They were going through the whole spiel, telling me how great this university was, and it was starting to sound like elevator music to a high school kid. But my sister started to fall asleep, and she kind of fell over on Coach Bowden, and she was starting to sleep, and my mom got up to put her in the bed. Coach Bowden grabbed her. He's like, "No, she's right at home with me." So that sold my mom. But for me, I honestly, guys, I just laid in bed, maybe a couple nights later, and asked myself, where would I go to school if I never played a down of football? And Florida State just happens to be 30 minutes closer to Pensacola than Auburn, so that's why I chose Florida State.
Well, Derek, you and your little sister made the right choice. We thank you. Derek, let's talk about 1993. You and a fellow from Thomasville led us to a national championship. Now, here's a stat I remember. In 1993, after our first 5 ball games, our opponents had scored 14 points. Derek Brooks, as a linebacker, had scored 18 points. He had personally outscored the first 5 teams, and he didn't even play offense. Now, Derek, what made you guys a championship defense?
Really, it was the work we put in here on this practice fields. That particular summer, heading into that season, pretty much 90% of our football team stayed here during that summer, and we pushed each other to no limits, because we felt coming off of the 92 season, our offense was on track, and they figured out this shotgun, this hurry-up offense with Charlie, but we as a defense were just finding our identity. We just lost Marvin Jones, and a lot of people around the country didn't know what we were on defense, but we were a very confident bunch. And I think we just put in a lot of work behind the scenes. And one thing that our defense was confident of that year was scoring opportunities. That was the one thing that was missing. Whenever we got in the big game, the defense didn't score. So we were mentally preparing ourselves to score on defense every single game, and I just thank God I happened to be in the right place at the right time quite a few times that year. But it was really the work and challenging each other day in and day out, because we felt, honestly, in 1993 that we were going to deliver Coach Bowden his first national championship, and we felt we had the best players.
Derek, let's go to 1993. Orange Bowl for the national championship. Fred's right in front of it right there. We defeated the Nebraska Cornhuskers in the Orange Bowl 18-16. Tell us what you remember about that magical night in Miami.
Well, the first thing I remember is they lined up for a field goal. I was like, not again. It's just can't happen to us again in this weather. But we know it's going to be a tough game. And what I really remember about that game is not so much of what happened during the game, because we went out and we played. It was a close ball game throughout. we knew that there was going to be a tough opponent and we were not going to blow out Nebraska. It was because of the weather and our offense had to change, so we knew it was going to be really close, and our defensive staff kind of prepared us for that throughout the week. We keep it tight, we'll find a way to win. So as we line up, really for them to kick that field goal, it was just, as we broke that huddle, we was like, we're either going to block it or he's going to miss it because we're going to win. And lo and behold, as we saw it sail left, we all jumping and screaming. But for many of you that was not in that locker room, to see Coach Bowden's expression when he talked to us in that locker room was priceless. He really looked as if the bear was lifted off his back. And he just, I mean, amongst all the emotions with him and Miss Ann, he just simply said, thank you. He said, guys, I can't say nothing more than thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just remember his face till today, full of emotion and wet hair, because we douched him 3 times a day today. Excuse me, Powerade. We poured Powerade over it. But again, just expressing that Coach Bowden had, that's what I remember most.
All right, let me ask you about another one. There was a certain game where we were behind 31-3 here, and something happened in the fourth quarter. We came back, and I remember Colsey catching an interception that was key, but we beat Florida 31-31, but then it wasn't over. If you guys remember, we went to the Sugar Bowl, your last game, and it was called the 5th quarter in the French Quarter. And we had a game against Florida again in New Orleans. What do you remember about that game?
Well, first, we honestly went into that game knowing that we was going to beat Florida again, because the way that we came back, we felt we won, and they did choke. They did. There was no other explanation than that. You know, we came back and we smashed them with the 10 minutes to go. But going into the Sugar Bowl, we said, hey, we're not going to let it be close. It's not going to be another dramatic finish. We're going to finish this off right. And from the first snap all the way through, we dominated the 5th quarter. And for me, personally, that game has a great significance because before that game, I shared with you guys, I had a dream about Deion Sanders played his last game in the Sugar Bowl, and he had an interception to win the game. Well, that vision came to me. And lo and behold, my last college play was the interception to end the game against Florida in the Sugar Bowl.
In that game, I tell you what I remember, there was a play, we had a tailback named Warwick Dunn. You remember him? And he had an old friend named Omar Ellison. And Omar was a wide receiver, and we flipped a pass to Warwick, and they thought he'd run, but Warwick decided to throw it long to Omar. What I remember is, I think it was Fred, who's the corner for Florida? Fred Leary?
Yes, Fred Leary.
He was chasing Omar, and Omar was going like this to him.
See, they forgot Warwick had played quarterback just a few months, a few years earlier in Baton Rouge, so we gave Warwick a chance to live his quarterback days.
I'd say the home fellow went to him, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you, Derek, you were a Super Bowl champion, Hall of Fame career at the Bucs, but a lot of people remember you just as much for your play on the field, and this isn't trite, for your work off the field. Tell us about your work with Brooks Bunch and your charities.
Well, thank you. Again, I just thank God that He allowed me to play football. And that's right. Honestly, guys, I tell you this, football is my talent, but that's not my gift. My gift is giving, and my gift is youth education, and that's what I believe in, and that's what I believe that being an investment that I could thank God and give back to God is through the giving of education of kids and young people. And that's what Derek Brooks Charities is all about. Started back in 1998 in Tampa, Florida. And just throughout that time, I've just been blessed to provide opportunities for kids not only to get educated, but travel and see the world beyond the walls that they live in. And that, again, to me just sparks an inspiration to make better citizens for tomorrow. And that has led us now to start our own charter high school, which I have in Tampa with the DeBartolo family as my partners. And we have a full-fledged 9 through 12 charter high school. And again, we're just trying to prepare kids for life tomorrow. And as I said before, that's pretty much the work that we do, and the seed we sow is through education. I thank God that He allowed a football talent to feed a gift of giving back to glorify God.
Derek, thank
Pleasure to meet you, sir. Thank you for the memories. Thank you.
you. They call them ends. I think you were called an end.
Yeah.
He was just an end, okay? But he comes to Florida State. About the time Lane Green was a little boy, Florida State decided that we would do something different and pass. Tell us a little bit about how you and your coaches revolutionized the passing game into college football.
Well, with Bill Peterson at that time, he was very good friends with the people down with the San Diego Chargers, with Sid Gilman, and in fact, Al Davis was on the staff at that time with Sid.
Just win, baby!
Yeah, and we're looking for a win. Help us find one tomorrow, Dave, okay? But anyway, Bill spent a lot of time down in San Diego with the Chargers and Sid, and decided that he wanted a pro-style offense. And so he brought it here because he felt that at that time that we would really be one up on the teams that we were playing. It would be more of an effect and more of a weapon and more dangerous against all the teams that we had to play that year. So we implemented that, but it was all based on having a guy like Steve Tenzi, 6'5" from Cincinnati, a great quarterback here, and could throw the heck out of the ball. And that's how it really got started. If we didn't have a quarterback like Steve, we would never been able to use that type of offense, But Steve kind of fit that role that we needed from professional football into college football, and we were very effective. Doug always gets these little things on me.
Let me set this up. You all know that Freddie used pine tar, black pitch tar, on his hands to catch the ball in the pros. And when he fell, he always cupped his hand like that because you can't get grass on the tar or it messes up. But what a lot of folks don't know, that the late Don Falls, our trainer, and Freddie also used tape and something else on their fingers here on wet days. Tell them about it, Freddie.
Oh, you want me to get cocky and everything, don't you?
It's not a violation.
No, I hope not now. I can't stand to go to jail now. Too old. Anyway, what we did, because at times it would be raining or wet or whatever the weather would be, and Don came up with the idea of getting strips of tape and putting regular thumbtacks through them and clipping them off. And they held. We put them all on both hands, on all 5 fingers, and that's how we used to cheat.
See, you guys thought Freddie had great hands. It was all 10 thumbtacks.
Between the thumbtacks and the stick thumbtack, what a career I had.
A little career. Walk down here, Freddie. Let's look at a game down here. Remember about that game?
Well, the greatest thing, my brother was going to school at University of Miami at the time. So it was very great beating him. But, Steve and I mean, the whole offense had a great day. Defense was overwhelming all the time here that we had. We had a terrific defense. And George Myra, the Matador, which was his nickname in college football, I was playing the left corner, and he happened to make a mistake, and we were in the right coverage, and I just stepped in front of the receiver and caught the ball on the 1-yard line and just ran like hell. Kept going. And hoped nobody caught me. But years later, you know what? I'll tell you, who was chasing me? Dan Connors, who was playing on defense. Yeah, and I knew Dan can't run. We were great friends, and he was too fat to run and chase me. So I was able to score a touchdown.
Well, it was a good win.
Can you talk a little bit about that first game against Florida?
Oh, it was something that we had finally known that we were finding out how good of a team we were, and we went out there, we just dominated the game. It wasn't a high-scoring game, but we dominated the game against them, and in that period of time where our defense with Don James was fantastic.
In everybody's lifetime, you wait for a period of time in your life when you're doing something that you all want to do, that you love doing. I really believe that you really don't appreciate what you're doing at the time until later. And thinking back on what you did, people you were around, like with these two guys here, it's fantastic to be able to say, yeah, I was a Seminole with these guys too. At work, and Derek. So, it's fantastic. But to me, listen, to be from Florida State, I'll tell you what, it's to be from Florida State and be a Seminole and be part of this university growing and a football program going, to me means the world. It really does. And listen, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people waiting tonight to get chopped down. Let me tell you what, Angelo you know who Tim Brown is. He played for Notre Dame years ago, and I coached Timmy for the majority of his career, okay? So he texted Angelo and I last night and said, look out for tonight, okay? And so I had Angela text him back. I said, tell him to tell that little leprechaun there's going to be a little Indian with a hatchet chasing him around here. Okay? Listen, we're going to bring it home now, so I don't have to deal with Timmy anymore.
Failure's not an option. Ain't no way around, we steady pounding. Stop that hating clown. We'll come to your town straight tear down. You ain't need much compare. Got your flag, got flags everywhere. We the Seminoles, Seminoles, we the Seminoles, we the Seminoles.
Thank you. Well, tell him I said hi. He's a gentleman. And your dad, I just love playing golf with him. He was awesome. Oh, how you doing? Ron Sellers. How you doing? Yeah, I used to play golf when I was with the Dolphins with your dad. Yeah, I know.
It's in that email we passed it on to my mom too. She
Oh.
really such a nice thing. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
This might be your number one.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Anna Laura, you can put it's
Oh,
silver.
oh,
You can go
okay.
down there.
Yes,
Oh, she's gonna die.
Honey, look at this.
Can we get you to sign a jersey?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and then here's number 2. Her son.
Will this work here
No,
or
we
not?
got a gold
Oh,
one for
okay.
you.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, we're
she
serious.
said she would come down here and watch you play, and she said you have the greatest hands of any wide receiver.
You hear that? I have the greatest hands.
I had that jersey. My mom and dad bought that for me, of course.
Yeah, what's her name?
And Laura.
Annie?
A-N-N-I-E.
A-N-N-I-E?
And then Annie Laura. L-A-U-R-A. L-A-U-R-A. Willis.
There was some boys from Cairo, Georgia, took that jersey and tore it off of me and told me I was supposed to be a Georgia fan. From then on, I got 2 favorite teams.
So
Florida State and Tennessee,
we
Georgia.
gave her this jersey a few years ago when they came back out.
Give that to her, okay?
Yeah, appreciate it.
Here you go.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
The guy to my right, nobody else wears 34. He came here with Gary Padgett. I don't know if they came as a pair, but we were glad to get both of them. He's also a basketball player. Ron, let me ask you, what brought you to Florida State?
Watching Fred Blendikoff play my senior year, FSU invited our whole team from Jacksonville over for the FSU-Kentucky game. Kentucky was the 5th-ranked team in the country, and we knew that FSU was going to give them a good game, but we were not expecting FSU to beat them. And so I'm sitting in this with my teammates, but specifically right next to Gary Padgett, and we saw Fred Blendikoff put on a show where FSU won like 45-7 against the 5th-ranked team in the country. And I turned to Gary, I said, Gary, they play football like we do in high school, but this is the way we want to play at the next level. Why don't we come here? And Gary said, Ron, I'm going wherever you want to go. So that's what we did.
Ron, let's talk about a couple of games. You had a pretty darn good career. I remember one. I think I was about 11 years old, and Daddy and Mama took us to Birmingham, Alabama. Well, that's not too much younger. All right. You were only 12. All right. So Florida State, we had lost at Houston. I think we tied NC State. We were 0-1-1. And we had to go play Big Bad Alabama at Legion Field, led by a coach named Bear Bryant. And we didn't have a chance. Nobody thought we had a chance at all, except a couple of guys in garnet gold, maybe about 65 of them. And Florida State ended up with what I think probably was at that time certainly the greatest tie in our history. We tied Alabama 37-37 in a tremendous game. Tell us what you remember about Bear Bryant and that game.
That game, first place I want to help you remember it, we were 0-1. We were not 0-1-1. We had just lost to Houston at Houston. Then we played Alabama and Birmingham, and they were 24-point favorites over us. They were the #1 team in the country, hadn't played a game yet, but their defense had 10 starters back, and they had only given up 36 points the whole season the year before in 10 games. And we put up 37 points against them, and that's where Coach Bear Bryant said on national television, when they were filming him, he said, "What the hell is going on out here?" And I had a pretty good game, and as a matter of fact, in December that year, Bear Bryant and I happened to be on the driving range in Tallahassee here because of the Tallahassee Open. And he walked over to me, he says, "Are you Ron Sellers?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, I just want to shake your hands because not one of my defensive backs got this close to you this whole last year." And what I will tell you is I've had about 5,000 people tell me they were listening to our game on the radio. But that night, we flew back. It was a night game. We flew back. We got here about 10:30 in the Tallahassee. And Rush was going on. It was canceled. And it was on the front page of the Tallahassee Democrat the next morning of the airport. We had over 10,000 people here at the Tallahassee airport that night waiting for us.
Let me get this one. Let me ask you about another one. We had not yet won in 1967. The Big Bad Gators had come up here to play. You guys, the game before, had beat them except for a referee in the corner right over there in 66. And we went down to Gainesville, and of course they thought we had no chance. And in the first quarter, your quarterback, your friend Kim Hammond, got knocked out. He got a concussion, and I think we had different concussion rules at that time. But by the beginning of the fourth quarter, that concussion had evidently ended. And so Kim came back from having been knocked out, came back on the field. We were just ahead by a couple of points, I think, but it wasn't looking good. And all of a sudden, Kim hooked up with you, and you kind of take it from there.
Well, to start, it was the last game of the season for both of us, and the winner was going to go to the Gator Bowl to play against Penn State, who was the fourth and fifth ranked team in the country. They had an All-American tight end named Ted Kwolek, and it was like Joe Paterno's first year. And so Kim got knocked out, and then late in the fourth quarter, they were driving for the winning score, and they fumbled the ball. We recovered on like our own 4-yard line. And Kim Hammond all of a sudden comes in to the game. Now at halftime, he did not know who I was or anybody on the team was. And we sure as heck knew he was not coming back into the game. But here he comes back into the game, and he calls the play for me. And I caught about a 55-yarder out to about the 40-something yard line of the Gators. The next play, we lost 3 yards. And the next play, I scored a touchdown. So that sealed the game and the victory for us, and it was very sweet to be part of the team, to be the first team to beat the Gators in Gainesville. It was a pretty sweet night that night.
Ron, let me ask you also, we won the right to go to the Gator Bowl. I remember it was a cold day. We had Penn State. That was a big power, certainly. Joe Paterno. We had Bill Peterson and you and Kim and Larry Green and a few others. We were down 17-0, as I recall, in that game. And it turned out much better. What do you remember about the 1967 Gator Bowl?
I can honestly say the first thing that comes to mind always is that is the first and only game I remember in college where I dropped a pass. I dropped a pass. And it was the first play of the game. and it was a quick out to me, and I dropped it, and Kim threw me a perfect pass. I went on to catch 14 passes that game, and but at halftime we're behind 17-0, and coming out in the second half, and Penn State has the ball on their own 26-yard line, 4th down and 1, and Joe Paterno decides to go for it. Why, I don't know, but thank goodness he did. They did not make it, and like the first play, Kim Hammond threw me about a 24-yard touchdown, and we went on to tie them 17-17. It was a huge victory, but two teams that we tied that year was Alabama, who they were the Southeastern Conference champions. We also beat Texas A&M that year, who was the Southwestern Conference champions, and we beat Penn State, who was the Big East champions. So we had a great team in 1967.
Now, Ron, you went on, you had a great NFL career. He must have gained 7 or 8 pounds, and he became big enough for the NFL to tear them up. You played, very few people played for Tom Landry and Don Shula. What was it like to play with two of the greatest of all time?
Thanks, Doug. I was fortunate. I was drafted #1 by the Patriots, and then I was traded to the Dallas Cowboys, who had just won their Super Bowl, and I knew I had to play pretty good to make. So anyway, Tom Landry and was absolutely incredible coach. I loved playing for them, and I was their leading receiver that year. I was on the team, and then I caught the winning touchdown in a playoff game against the 49ers with about 25 seconds to go in the game from Roger Staubach. Then Don Shula, we were Super Bowl champions. The next year I got traded to Miami Dolphins and we won the Super Bowl. And Don Shula was also so different than Tom Landry, but they both had one thing in common. They knew how to win big games and win championships.
Ron, we're on a 24-game winning streak. Pretty neat little quarterback from Alabama has done awfully well. Tell us, you've played with some of the greatest quarterbacks. What's your thoughts when you see number 5 on the field for Florida State?
Well, I have always said that if you don't have a great receiver, you can't be a great quarterback. And I can tell you that Barry and I were fortunate enough to make a lot of quarterbacks look really good. And just look at the receivers that number 5 has, and guess what? He should be All-American all the time with those receivers. But, and another thing I will tell you, the throws that he's made is absolutely incredible. 15 of 16 against Notre Dame in the second half. Is that awesome or what? So we want to see some of the same thing tonight, and I will tell you all that Barry Smith is one of the nicest gentlemen you'll ever meet, and he has a heart of gold, and he was one of the greatest receivers in FSU history.
And I got a kid now that I coached, and I did some coaching before I got that.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad.
And
we
number
like
22 is a kid that played for me, Vickers.
Oh, yeah. Steve Vickers?
No, Jonathan Vickers.
Jonathan Vickers.
Kid on the team now.
Beautiful.
And I told him, I said, when I saw him, the first time I saw him out here, I told him, I said, hey, I used to pull for another 22. So be good to the number.
There's been a lot of good 22s.
You're right. Hey, pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you. Tell Gary, I won't get to see him this time, but we usually do a good job.
Okay.
Good to see you.
All right, take care.
But Gary and I, we ran together, we worked together, we partied together, and we were kind of a yin and yang type thing. And to me, he's still the best quarterback that's ever come through this place. But that's my opinion. Barry, let me ask you this: you also played, and this is pretty unusual. You played receiver with 3 other NFL receivers on the same team: Red Dawson, Kent Gatos, and tight end Gary Parris. And you caught a lot of passes even though those guys were there. What was it like playing with 3 other receivers at the same time?
Well, up until recently, Gary Parrish, who was a freshman with me, we came in together in '69, was an outstanding tight end and had one heck of a career in the next level. But the two guys I'm very close to, Rhett Dawson, we used to call him Chigger, and then Kate Gatos, which we called him Pondbird because he was so tall, kind of Ron Sellers type as far as the height was concerned. One of them, Kent went on with the Raiders, and Dawson went on with the Oakland, with the Houston Oilers. We, and especially in 1971, to me, it's my probably the most fun I ever had because the four of us, we just worked together. It was all about winning games. It was all about how we could work together. And it was the first year, if you remember, 1971, that we played in the inaugural Fiesta Bowl. And it was big stuff back then because back then we didn't have 38 bowl games. So to get a chance to go to the Fiesta Bowl, and in that Fiesta Bowl, we set an NCAA record because we were the first group, the first university, to have three wide receivers to catch over 100 yards apiece on the same team in the same game, which was pretty cool. Now, it was good. Great guys, dear friends.
Let me ask you this, tonight, we'll see number 80, Rashad Green for Florida State. What do you think about number 80?
He has made his mark as far as I'm concerned. From one wide receiver to another, he's a student of the game. He runs great routes. He knows how to get open. He doesn't get rattled. He has, what I say, cojones. He's not afraid to get hit coming across the middle. And more importantly, he's a game breaker. When the going gets tight, you know who number 5 is going to be looking at because he makes things happen. He's been here for, almost 4 years. He will a few more games. And he's done a great job, and I'm proud that he's one of us, a great wide receiver.
Let me ask you this, quite simply. What's it meant to you to be a Seminole?
Oh, well, people that know me, I'm a very passionate individual. I love Florida State University. To be the Garnet and Gold, it courses through my veins. I love giving back. I love supporting everything about Florida State University, not just the athletics, but the academics. I'm very proud to be part of this university now and look back at where it was back when I came here in 1969 and see what all of us have created. It's not just about one or two. We've all created the Seminole Nation.
You were an awfully good high school player, but you had a lot of choices. You were in a big metropolitan area. What brought you to Florida State?
Well, without making a real long story, there's two guys that I followed a lot. I love watching them play, hear about them play. One of them, of course, was Fred Biletnikoff, which to me is one of the greatest wide receivers ever. And then this kid right next to me, Jingle Joints, number 34, loved watching him. I went to a high school that we pretty much ran the ball. We didn't win very much. We didn't throw much. But I was lucky. I was fast. I was a high hurdle state champion. I was recruited by a lot of different universities. And when I got a chance to make a decision, I wanted to come to Florida State because I wanted to follow in the footsteps of Biletnikoff and Sellers because I felt if I could be the best I could be, it's going to be right here, nowhere else, and it worked out very well. I love Florida State University.
Failure's not an option. Ain't no way around, we steady pounding. Stop that hating clown. We'll come to your town straight head down. You ain't need much compare. Got your flag, got flags everywhere. We the Seminoles, we the Seminoles, we the Seminoles.
From the 1973, 4, and 5 Seminoles, I know I see Brad Pryor, Mike Schumann, Jimmy Black is here. Will you guys raise your hands right there? Welcome back to you guys. I saw Jim Malkowitz and there are others, but thank you all for coming. We've got 3 great legends. If you all remember, in the early 70s, we had been not winning as much as we wished we could have. But 3 fellas from Tallahassee Leon High School decided to come to Tallahassee, to stay in Tallahassee, and by the time they had finished, Florida State had moved to its highest ranking in its history and an undefeated season and along the way had 3 consecutive wins over the University of Florida. Those things didn't quite seem possible in 1972, but these guys and some of the guys you see out there helped make all that happen. So let's introduce our legends. First, I think he was born in Brooksville, Florida, but he came to Tallahassee a little while later. He was a state championship quarterback at Leon High School with Coach Gene Cox. He stayed in Tallahassee. Before he finished, he had thrown for more than 3,500 yards, 22 touchdowns. Welcome back, Wally Woodham. He had 2 teammates right behind him at Leon High School who also came to Florida State. Jimmy Jordan was a Florida record-setting quarterback, threw for a zillion yards his senior year. I think Anquan Bolden broke that record maybe 20 years later. Jimmy Jordan came to Florida State where he threw for more than 4,100 yards and 39 touchdowns. Welcome back, Jimmy Jordan. And I guess he really just thought he'd just follow his boys. Kurt Unglaub had moved from the cold north to Tallahassee and came to Leon High School and somehow learned to catch the football. He was part of both Jimmy and Wally's record-setting passing teams, along with Mike Schumann at Leon. And Kurt came to Florida State, had an outstanding career, was known as one of the fastest Seminoles ever. There you go. But if you look at the record book, you'd think that, because he has 2 of the 5 longest touchdowns in Florida State history, pass receptions of 91 and 96 yards. That great deep threat, Kurt Unglaub.
And there for a little short span, Coach Cox. Yes, sir. Good seeing you. There for a little while, Coach Cox, he had a lot of players from Leon coming here for like 5 or 6 years. There was a lot of players. And that's kind of cool to be all from the same high school. And especially that when all 3 of you are from the same high school. That's not very common.
All right, Wally, you're first up. First, tell us, why did you come to Florida State?
Well, Doug, being at Leon, to be honest with you, I didn't have a lot of the choices. I can't. 5'11". I was also slow. The choices were pretty slim. I came over here when Daryl Moody was here, and but it worked out well.
Wally, you had it. Let me ask you this one. The fans, I don't know if some of you remember, the 2-headed quarterback was named by Sports Illustrated, and I think it was called Wally Jim Jordan. And that was because Coach Bowden alternated quarterbacks back and forth. We didn't know how he'd do it, but it all turned out well for fans in Florida State. But the truth is, you guys were good athletes, you're competitive. Wally, how did you handle that one? Because the truth is, every one of you wanted to be a starter. How did you handle that thing?
Well, you just handled it. I mean, everybody wants to play. I know Jimmy Black's out here, another quarterback, that, you want to be the man. You're an athlete, you want to be the guy. Jimmy did, so did I, but it worked out so that we did well. And sometimes you just have to, you don't like it, but you got to live with it. It's not fun, but you do it. But you look at the whole picture, it worked out good. But you have to put yourself aside, and that's not easy. That's human nature, to want to be the guy.
Everybody thought it was just fun. Well, it was fun for everybody, maybe except you two, but thanks. It was great for Kurt, that's right. Thanks for doing it. Wally, you had a chance to play with the winningest college football coach of all time. Tell us a little bit about what was it like to play for Bobby Bowden.
Well, I think the things that Coach Bowden, obviously his faith was very important to him and passed that on to myself and a lot of other players. But I think the thing with Coach Bowden was he was able to take discipline, bring discipline in, but he still had the personality that you could talk with him. So he had a great mold of the discipline, yet the personality to be able to talk to the players. A lot of us guys came up in high school. I know these 3 guys did. You just didn't talk to the head coach. The head coach was the head coach. You did what he said, and you were scared of him. At FSU, you respected Coach Bowden, but you weren't really scared of him. So that was a difference. And then you could go talk to him about personal stuff. I wanted to quit playing football when I was a freshman. I said, I'm done, I'm out of here. And I went to talk to him one time for about an hour, and he taught me out of it. I already talked to my dad, said I was done. He talked to him, and Coach Bowden listened and gave me a little counsel, you know.
It's a good counseling session.
Good man.
Let's talk about games just a second. Wally, there's a game that, in my time as a fan, December 3rd, 1977, we have not defeated Florida for 9 straight seasons. We go to Gainesville, and to put it any other way, we throttle them, we thrash them, 37-9. Mike and Kurt help you all, you both through. Tell us a little bit about that day in Gainesville, what it was like.
Well, to be honest, you know, we had come off a loss at San Diego State. We got beat pretty bad. That was our second loss, I believe. We were 9-2 at the time, I believe, or 8-2. And we went into Florida knowing we had the better team. But we got off quick. Kurt caught a pass, threw Kurt a pass, and for a touchdown, we got off a 10-0 lead. And then Jimmy came in, and from the second quarter on, and he started hitting. Mike Schumann caught a couple. I think Roger Overby. I remember Mike Schumann Roger had 3 touchdowns. Mike Schumann might have made a grab down the side when he kind of came back and made it, you know, stuff. So we had some. We were ready to go. It was time, and we did it.
It was a great day. I got to tell you one. I got back on I-10 to come back from Tallahassee. A sight I will never forget in Florida State football history. I pull onto I-10. I see a Blunt's Plumbing white truck in front of me, and Walter Blunt is in the middle of this, just one, bench seat, and I see a really big arm sticking out the left side, and another arm sticking out the right side. We pulled on past it, and this is true. We have just defeated Florida 37-9. And I think that 2 of Walter's friends on the team had probably decided that Walter had been celebrating so much that they should help him get the Blunt's Plumbing truck home. So Ron Simmons, the All-American nose guard, and Sam Platt, darn good tailback, they are driving Walter home in the Blunt's Plumbing truck from one of the best wins we ever had. It was a good day. Wally, what's it been like for you to be a Seminole?
Well, it's neat to see where we've come and the national championships. Just to be, I think to myself sometimes, just to be part of that foundation way back. I feel like sometimes there's one brick in that stadium out there with my name in it. It's just nice to be a part of something and all the wins and how it's going on with Coach Fisher. The university's been blessed. We were. And it's been great to see. Very proud of the school and everything they're doing.
Wally, thank you, and we appreciate everything you've done for Florida State. Thank you, Wally. Jimmy Jordan. Wait, before you leave, Joe, you get to wait. Hold on, Joe Hunter. This song, that song says that we got Butler, Jones, and Ivory Joe in the golf cart. Wave to Ivory Joe Hunter right back there. Joe's just moved back to Tallahassee. Thanks for coming by, Joe. Jimmy Jordan. Now, a fellow that you were a second teamer at Leon, your junior year. You waited. Wally threw all the great passes, scored a state championship. You had a fabulous senior year. Why did you come to Florida State?
Well, a lot like Wally was talking about. There wasn't a lot of offers, but
hold it close to you.
Way better. Okay. Coach Mudra was going out, and Coach Bowden was coming in, and both of them recruited me. And of course, Jimmy Black's my hero. Where's Jimmy? So, yeah, that's the reason. No, he really is. He's a great guy. But it got in the middle of the recruiting thing, and I had 2 coaches, and Coach Bowden was coming in, and I was very limited on running, as you probably well know. Right. And so what happened? He said he was coming to Tallahassee to light it up and throw the football all over the park. So that was probably one of the main reasons. I grew up here. I was born here. I went to Florida State, went to Kate Sullivan, Cobb, Florida State, right on up, Leon. And so I'm a home guy here, and that made a difference. I'm an only child. My parents, they wanted me to stay here too. But that's probably the main reason.
Well, it was a great decision. We appreciate your doing it. Let's take you back to 1978, I believe. We go out to LSU, big school, and we had a win out there that was really a monumental, game-changing win at Florida State, and you had a pretty good day at Death Valley. What do you remember about beating LSU in Death Valley?
Well, as Wally and I went through this quite often, that was a typical day where you get off the bus at the stadium to play, and Coach Bowden goes, "Jimmy, you're going to start today." So that's kind of the heads up we got on that a lot of times. You know, we didn't know until game time, but it just worked out great. Jackie Flowers had a great day. Offensive line, they never touched me. I don't think they maybe sacked me one time. So I give all the credit to the offensive line on the offensive side. And we had a great defense too, but we threw the ball deep and they couldn't stop it, basically, and we got ahead of them and got the crowd out of it, and that helped.
I got to tell you another great line. When you got back that Monday at the Bowden Luncheon, you know, we had been ahead in that game, and we went into the prevent defense, and they started edging back on us. Those of us at home got worried, and Dean Coyle Moore asked Coach Bowden. He stood up at the luncheon down at the Holiday Inn. He said, "Coach, I have a question." Coach Bowden, "What is it, Dean?" Dean said, "Coach Bowden, what does the prevent defense prevent?" And it was one of the great lines. Coach remembers that one, but the prevent held out a little bit. Jimmy, you had some great receivers at Florida State. You guys could throw, no doubt about it, but some folks could catch it. Tell us a little bit about the receivers you had here.
Well, we had Kurt and Mike, and Mike was older than me pretty much, but we had Sam Platt. We had some Jackie Flowers, Jackie, and we had great receivers. This guy, though, I'm just telling you, in high school, I've never seen anybody catch a football like that. To this day, I mean, he was that good.
Which one of you were at Southern Mississippi? Did y'all both play Southern Miss out there, Hattiesburg? Do y'all remember? You did. One of the funniest plays in Florida State history, you throw a post pattern to Jackie Flowers. Jackie is a good receiver from Jacksonville. And if you see the film, Jackie caught it at about the 50, and he's open. He's running down the field, and one hand, he is batting himself in the helmet, looking like he's crazy. And I don't know, the reason why a bee had flown into Jackie's helmet, and he is trying to knock a bee out of his helmet while he runs 50 yards. It was, y'all had a lot of, some stories you can't tell, but that one was all right. Jimmy, you had a great career at Florida State. As a quarterback, when you're watching either on television or live, we've got a pretty good one right now, number 5. As a quarterback, when you watch him play, what do you see in Jameis Winston's game? What do you observe?
Everybody enjoying, because you might not see anything like that again. He is that good of a quarterback. And Wally and I have been there, Jimmy's been there. He makes throws that I cannot believe he makes. And he just, you know what he also is? He's a winner. He's going to, I guarantee you after the games, he's exhausted because he leaves everything on the field. And that's about all I mean, you can't say enough about it.
Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you for making the decision to come here. So Kurt Unglad. Kurt, I remember you moved to Tallahassee. Kurt's dad, my dad, were in the same sort of business. You guys, did you come from Minnesota or Wisconsin? Remind me.
Wisconsin.
I knew it was somewhere cold. It was way away. Tell me now, it may seem obvious, but why'd you come to Florida State?
Very simple. I had a couple offers, I guess, if you want to call it that. And my only reason is I wanted to play as quick as I could play. I didn't really want to sit on the bench. I didn't really want to do anything. I wanted to play as quick as I could do that. And Mike Schumann, I think he's left, but Mike Schumann grabbed me one afternoon and said, "Let me show you something." So he took me into the coach's locker room, showed me the depth chart, and said, "You can play tomorrow if you want to. I'm going to play on this side, you can play on that side." And I said, "Absolutely." So I credit me coming to Florida State because of Mike Schumann, and I'll never forget that. It's the first time publicly I probably announced that. I know my family knows about that, but I appreciate Mike's attitude on that.
That was great. Kurt, let's talk about, there's a funny bowl game over here, and it says the Snow Bowl. Now, Dean Moore did this. That was not a bowl game. So a lot of people don't know. All of these are regular season games. These are the bowl games. There's one, and it says North Texas State. Wait a minute. Let me find Snow Bowl. 1976, FSU 21, North Texas State 20, Snow Bowl. There ain't no Snow Bowl. Dean Moore just thought it was pretty funny, and he did that. Tell us about a cold as heck game day in Texas.
Denton, Texas.
Denton, Texas. Tell us about that day.
Well, that was a game that probably a couple of y'all heard about Coach Bowden talking, one of his, I guess, funnest games. I don't know if that's a word, but had a great time. And I just remember that game. Here we wake up that morning and there's, I don't know, 8 or 9 inches of snow on the ground, and most of us hadn't seen snow before. I have, but most of the guys there hadn't seen snow at all. And so we're kind of throwing snowballs at each other and kind of having a good time. So finally we have to get on the buses to go to the stadium, which is like, are we really going to play this game? And we were questioning if we were going to play the game. And so we finally got to the locker room, and we kind of got in there, and it was cold. No heat, nothing. It was just ice cold. And Jimmy Black's in the audience. He remembers that. It was just cold. So here's our equipment manager. We're all kind of standing around. Are we going to play the game or not? So our equipment manager, Frank DeBoer, bless his heart, he goes out that morning to, I think, Ace Hardware or, Kmart or something, and buys some Long John underwear and some gloves. Now, the gloves that these guys that wear out here today are probably $200 gloves, right? He buys a 69-cent garden gloves, with the blue band on it, with the white cotton and all that stuff. And, it's just crazy. We're sitting there with these gloves on, and we're like, okay. So, the first time they get wet, they get frozen. So I think I wore about 3 or 4 pairs of gloves that day. But the snow, the field was 100% covered in snow. You could not see anything. And they kind of put some, red or orange cones out to kind of give you the yardage and the goal line. And it was just tough to understand it. But one of the other neat things about it is that everybody gets Gatorade and water on the sidelines. So the first time I go get something to drink during this game, it's bouillon. The soup that you drink when you're cold. You just kind of drinking bouillon. I'm like, okay. So after that, we ended up having some really neat times there, but in that game. But one of the plays that I got was a straight takeoff, and Jimmy Black comes to the huddle and says, 96X go, and I'm like, okay. So I run down the field as fast as I can go, which is about this fast, and it's in the snow though. So I get about halfway, into my route, and I kind of stop a little bit. The defensive back, he slides and slips around and falls on his back. The ball's coming, so I catch it. And I run all the way through the end zone, all the way past the goal post, because I have no idea if I'm in the end zone or not, right? So that's 91 yards we score on that play. And it was just so much fun to be able to throw the ball in the snow, being a slow receiver, be able to trot down there and stop, and everybody else is falling down. You just got to stand up and catch it. So it was a great game. And a couple of things real quick I got to say that I loved about that game was after the game, and Jimmy Black will tell you better than I can, but after the game, we literally tackled each other outside of the locker room. Coach Bowden looked at one time, he was covered in snow. We were throwing snowballs at each other, just had a great time. Got back on the bus to go to the airport. We're all singing Christmas carols. So it was just a really neat time and just a fun game. So, yeah, Victor.
And you've left out, we didn't win the game, but I think what the stats show is, got to the end of the game, and Jimmy, bless you, coach decided that he didn't want you to throw the 2-point play. We had a tailback from Inverness, Florida, named Larry Key, who I don't think had ever thrown a pass in his life in a ball game. Coach Bowden said, well, we'll let Larry do something. So tell us about the 2-point play to win.
It's a play that we practice in dry weather. Now we have to execute it in the snow. And here's Larry, he throws the ball like a shot put. He can't even really extend his arms. So he kind of goes out there and kind of pushes the ball, and the ball kind of floats along, and again, it's the snow. It just kind of falls in my hands, And we win the game with a little extra point, play action extra point with a halfback pass. So
Larry Key for the touchdown in the snow, and the Seminoles win the Snow Bowl over there. Don't tell anybody else. Not a real bowl game. 21-20. Fellas, we want to thank you for coming. Fans, these guys, you know, they brought us back. A lot of other players with them, but y'all remember the old term Saturday Night Fever. It was a lot of fun at Florida State, and it was because of these guys from Tallahassee who stayed in their hometown with Bobby Bowden and the Ballad of Bobby Bowden, and a lot of fun. We want to thank you for coming. Next week we play, I think, the University of Florida. That's the team. We play them here next Saturday, and our sod game guest will be the most decorated player in the history of college football from Thomasville, Georgia, Charlie Ward. So we look forward to you seeing Charlie here with you. We watch the internet. Look, we may be 90 minutes before game time rather than 2 hours, but we will see. Thank you all for, you didn't have to stay in the snow. Get in there and yell loud for these Seminoles. Thank you all very much.
Failure's not an option. Ain't no way around, we steady pounding. Stop that hating clown. We'll come to your town straight tear down. You ain't need much compare. Got your flag, got flags everywhere. We the Seminoles. Seminoles. We the Seminoles. We the Seminoles.
Microphone's coming to you. You got the mics?
He's got the wires.
That's amazing. Is that a little better? Yeah. Thank you. Charlie, first of all, tell us what you're doing in Pensacola, Florida.
Well, I'm the head football coach, and I also teach people at Booker T. Washington High School. It's my first year there, and it's been a very good experience.
Now, Charlie, I got to ask you before I forget, we had online, and some people had this question. Do you ever raise your voice at the Young Mill?
Well, I'm sorry to tell you, yes, I do. It's on occasions, but they have to hear me. They have to hear me loud. So I used to do that in football as well, and basketball.
I bet they listen. Charlie, let's go back to 1989. You're in Thomasville. Frankly, you probably could have gone almost anywhere. What led you to Florida State?
Well, one of the main reasons was being able to play for Coach Bobby Bowden. As we know, he's a living legend, and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to be a part of his program here at Florida State for 5 years, and a great man of God. And so my parents trusted him, and I trusted him because I wanted to play basketball and football. And he was one of the guys that allowed guys to do that, or Brad Johnson. So he had a good history on his side, and plus it was a good football program. So I wanted to be a part of it, and I was grateful that he gave me an opportunity.
Charlie, we're glad you made that decision. Let's go something to 1993, move forward to your senior season. There was a freshman who came in, Coach Bowden, I think, went to you and said, could this freshman be your roommate? He had a little tragedy at home, and see if you could help him. Warwick Dunn. Tell us a little bit about that year and your relationship with Warwick Dunn.
Well, actually, Doug Williams was the inspiration behind Warwick and I becoming roommates. Doug is, of course, from Louisiana area, and played at Grambling. And I got an opportunity to see him my junior year. And he had mentioned that Warwick was coming to Florida State, and he wanted me to take care of him. So I was fortunate to be able to not have a roommate during that year. And so I brought Warwick in to be my roommate. And that year was a very good year for both of us because we had an opportunity to sit in the room and talk. Believe it or not, we did talk. We stayed in our room a lot. We were homebodies. We didn't hang out that often, so we watched television, we talked, and it was great for him to be able to have a roommate like me because we were very similar. And
I was willing to listen to him, and he had a lot to talk about. And that year, of course, was a very good year for us. As we sit here today, he was the one that was the most inspirational in us beating Florida that game because he caught the touchdown. So, great for him being here as well, and changing positions.
Do you think the senior roommate did okay with the new kid? Johnny, let's talk basketball just a second. You played here with 3 other NBA first-round draft picks. Pretty darn talented team. There was Sam Cassell, Bobby Sura, Doug Edwards, Rodney Novar, Chucky Graham. Talk a little bit about what it was like to play with those guys here.
Well, it was very good to be able to play with those guys. It seems like, well, we needed a point guard that could distribute the ball. That was my job. So I knew coming from football that a lot of times my job was to get the guys the ball that could score. And I stole all the ball. So understanding my role and coming from football, I wasn't basketball skilled. But having those guys around was a great inspiration because a lot of them were encouraging because they encouraged the coach to let me come out and play early on in my career, my days here. And we went on to have a very good basketball year. Sam came to us from junior college, which was a great pickup for us. And of course, he went on to do great things in the NBA. Same with Bob. So we had a very good nucleus, and we played well together.
They all appreciated getting the ball from you to shoot, right?
And then somebody had to distribute the ball.
There you go.
The rest of them weren't going to pass it.
Well, you gave it to Doug Edwards and said it was a dark hole. It wasn't coming back, was it?
That was my job. I was a quarterback, so.
Charlie, let me ask you this. How did you handle schoolwork? You were student body vice president and 2 sports. How did you handle time in college?
Well, it wasn't easy, but it did help to have people that were willing to help me reach my goals, which I was fortunate to be able to earn my degree as well. But I had professors in higher education, therapy, recreation that worked with me when it came time to work with me as far as scheduling time, and also the academic department here was very helpful as well. So it wasn't easy, but there had to be a lot of people involved in looking at my reality, my goal to reality, and I'm grateful that I had those that were willing to make me have an opportunity to graduate, something that I can say today I'm proud of.
Charlie, let me ask you this. Let's go to football again. 1992, we travel up to Atlanta. We're playing Georgia Tech. I remember there was a World Series going on. But we had a tough game at Tech. We go into the 4th quarter. We're down by 14. And I don't know whether it was you or Coach Bowden or somebody said, we better go to the 2-minute offense. We got to hurry up. So we went to the shotgun and 3 or 4 wide receivers. And it's like college football changed at that moment. Talk a little bit about that change to your fast break offense.
Well, we were supposed to win. We weren't winning at the time. Very similar to the way our guys are playing this year. They went to the last minute to make this thing easier.
W, baby!
But we changed to our 2-minute offense because we were down 17 points in the 4th quarter, and the only way that we could make any kind of run at it was to speed the game up, and we ran like a few plays, and all the rest of it was ad-lib, make something happen, and that's what happened. So we were fortunate during that time, just like our group here, we got a break. We got an offside kick, which gave us an opportunity to score a little bit quicker. And that's what happens sometimes when you're down. You need breaks to be able to continue to make that comeback. And we were fortunate that our defense stepped up, got stops when we needed it. We scored when we needed it at the right time, and we were grateful to be able to pull it out.
A good victory at Georgia Tech, and college football was really never the same after that. 1993. You and a very talented group of teammates went down to Gainesville. We had one remaining regular season game. If we won that game, we were going to make the Orange Bowl. Daryl would be happy from Ocala, right, Daryl? We were going to make the Orange Bowl. We were going to get to the national championship, and you might even win a Heisman Trophy with a win there. But we were ahead at Florida. They started coming back on us. We found ourselves, I've been to Florida Field a lot. It was the loudest that we've ever heard Florida Field. It's what I call a howling swamp. We're up by 6. They kick off to us. We're back at the 21-yard line. 10 to go. 2 passes got batted down. 1 almost intercepted. It's 3rd and 10 from the 21 at Florida Field. And Gene Deckerhoff kind of called it like this. That was a pretty good play there. Remember that one, Charlie? Yes. Talk a little bit about 1993 and coming back at the Swamp.
Well, it was we understood and knew going down there that it was going to be a very, very tough game for us. And of course, we were, I think, number 2 or something because we had lost to Notre Dame. And we knew we had a lot of things at stake, which was the national championship, had an opportunity to play in that. And they had a 23-game winning streak at home, which no one had beaten them down there. We knew it was going to be loud down there. However, we knew we had a very good team, and we were experienced as well. And we kept the crowd out of the game, the entire game, until like the 4th quarter. And that's when they made the comeback. And that play, as Doug was mentioning, was the loudest that day. I couldn't hear myself. We really had a hard time communicating. But we were fortunate that I was able to flush the pocket and also hit Ward in stride. And we got a good block from Tamar that spring game. So, of course, that was a great day for Seminoles as we cut off the Gators' tail. Maybe we shut their mouths a little bit anyway. We did something to keep them calm. And it was a great day for us because we continued to move on to play in the national championship, which we were grateful for, 1, and 2. We were confident that we could win it because we hadn't lost any bowl games. So that gave us great confidence, but it was a tough game.
A great victory at the University of Florida. Some people, I want to mention something, some people say, well, do we add some more orange and blue to the stadium today? The answer is absolutely not. Home games are never side games, and that's because Dean Coyle Moore always said, when the other team comes here, they got 2 chances, slim and none. So no more orange and blue today inside. Roy, talk a little bit about what was it like, I know you're a man of faith, what was it like to play for Bobby Bowden here at Florida State?
Well, it's a great, it was a great blessing to be able to have Coach Bowden as our spiritual leader, as well as our leader on the field. The biggest thing was he lived it. He lived his life that way. It was a great encouragement to all of the guys that were under him because we saw it each and every day. Of course, none of us are perfect. However, he was very, very instrumental in not just my life, but a lot of guys who played under Coach Bowden. And, that was something that we cherished, we enjoyed, getting an opportunity to go to church with our teammates. We went to 2 churches every August, which probably wouldn't happen today, but Coach Bowden didn't care. But he was just one of those type of guys that I was grateful to be able to play under because he's like a father figure to me. And I didn't go into his office that often. but when I did, I knew it was something serious. Whether that, I've been hanging there too often, but he did speak, but I saw him live his life, which was the greatest inspiration to me.
Charlie, thank you. Tell us, what was your thought process as a senior? You did have choices. You could have done NFL. You chose NBA. To me, it appears to me it was quite a good decision, a 12-year career in the NBA. What was your thought process on going basketball?
Well, I wanted to have options, and having an opportunity to play basketball my senior year was going to give me that option. And with that choice, in life we make choices and we have to live with the consequences. With that choice, it kind of threw me out of the loop of the NFL career, especially being a first-round pick. But I heard that I was going to either be the third, fourth, or fifth-round pick. So I wanted to continue my basketball career, give myself an opportunity to play in the NBA as well. And once it was all said and done, the NFL, I did the necessary things, almost everything, not everything, but to play in the NFL, but that wasn't God's plan for my life. And it gave me an opportunity to play in the NBA, got drafted by the New York Knicks, which I'm grateful for. Got an opportunity to play for some great coaches and play with some great guys. But I also played in New York, which at the time when I went to the Heisman, that was my choice. I chose to say that I'm not going to play in New York. When I was there, because of all the hustle and bustle and lo and behold, that's what God says to me. So, if you want to go somewhere and do something, say you're not going to do it, and God is sending you to do it.
You all knew that for about 5 years, the line in New York City was the best quarterback plays for the New York Knickerbockers.